welcome to this week's episode of the Melanin Muses Podcast. Now you're in for a treat because today is the premiere episode of our very new segment, Sensual Saturdays. Now, you might be wondering what that is. Well, let me tell you. We will talk about sex. Sex. Now, you might be wondering,
but why, Nikki? Why are you talking about such a, oh my, topic?
well, let's find out. Today, we are going to talk about three main things. 1, why we decided to talk about sex. 2, what makes us so passionate about the topic of sex. And 3, what we hope for you to get out of us talking about sex in this new segment. So, before we get started, please remember to like, subscribe, and hit that little notification bell so you remain aware of all of our future episodes and other things that might pop into the cosmos. Now, let's get started.
Why, hello there, and welcome to the Melanin Muses Podcast, Sensual Saturdays edition,
where we will talk about all things delicious, sexy, and sinful to stimulate your senses.
and to arouse your intellect.
In other words,
Let's talk about sex! Ha! Did I get your attention?
good. That was the point. Now that you're listening, we're here to take the shame surrounding sex away and replace it with understanding, acceptance, and a healthy outlook.
We want to arm you with the proper tools, knowledge, and peace of mind to enjoy and explore something that's so perfectly natural and normal in a safe way.
But also help you enjoy it and that walk to the fullest. Yes, that goes for everyone.
Let's get this party started. Hey, everyone, and welcome to the newest edition of the Melanin Muses Podcast, our Sensual Saturdays. Yay!
Woo.
Where we are going to discuss all things sex.
Yes, exactly.
Mm.
All of it, all the time.
And why, you may ask, are we going to be talking about sex? Why don't you tell them, Callie?
Well, when people discuss sexual topics, there seems to be an immense amount of discomfort and shame attached to these conversations. So, we figure here at Melanin Muses, we intend to dispel that shame because sex happens. And the better prepared you are for it, the easier it will be, the more enjoyable it will be, and hopefully your partner will have a good time too. So let's see if we can dispel some of those myths and the shame surrounding such a taboo topic that happens all over the world.
Exactly. Exactly. Because a lot of the time we've come to notice sex just makes us like embarrassed. It makes us red. It makes us like, oh my gosh, you can't talk about that in public. And it makes people uncomfortable. But even if it's uncomfortable to talk about, so many people behind closed doors are having sex. And sometimes not good sex, or maybe a lot of the time. I don't know, because I don't know what happens behind closed doors. But I think a lot of the miscommunication, a lot of the not so fun times where between two consensual partners happens because we do not have the confidence to have these casual conversations about things like, what do you like? What is something you don't want to try? We are too afraid to have these conversations, even with our partners, because we are ashamed to think sex is dirty. I mean, it can be dirty in a fun way, but you know what I mean.
Exactly. And the funniest thing for me is people are afraid to say the word sex. We have so many different terms for the word. So for example, people say, we're going to do it. We're going to have relations. We're going to fornicate, copulate, get lucky, get it on. Like,
Let's get it on. Dance break. Let's get it on.
David. See, it's just like there are whole songs surrounding these activities, but nobody actually says what the heck we're doing. Um, why? Like, why is this? I'm confused why there's so much secrecy surrounding a perfectly natural act. So that's kind of what we're here to talk about today.
Yeah. We're talking about what it is essentially. Well, I'm pretty sure you know what it is, but for those who are just a little bit too embarrassed to discuss, we're going to reiterate what it is and why. We already talked to you about why we're doing this, because we want to make you feel comfortable. We want to empower you to be able to enjoy such a natural act, but also arm you with the tools to go about it safely. So we're going to discuss a variety of topics on this segment over the course of the next several episodes, as long as we go with this, of different ways that you can practice safe sex, you can explore yourself, explore your sexuality, explore your sensuality, and become just all around comfortable with this topic. Because if you have no one else to talk to you about it, your older sisters are here. We got you. We're here to give you the things that you need to just hopefully make you feel comfortable. But to tell you a little bit more about why we're so passionate about it, we're going to touch upon some things that we've experienced, like the lies we've been told surrounding it, the shame that we felt personally surrounding it. So that way, going into future episodes, you know where we're coming from. And it's not just like, here's some statistics and here, just read this. No, here are some things that we're going to share with you to show why we are so passionate about this topic, and not just because we are from the outside looking in. So, yeah.
Exactly. So, buckle up. You're in for a bumpy ride. To begin, I'll talk about how sex education happens randomly, it seems. So in my case, my parents were very open about talking about sex and just making sure I knew what it was and what to expect. It was not so much something that wasn't done, but it was done between two people who love each other.
Mm-hmm.
And in high school, I had a sex education class that didn't really talk about sex itself, but talked about the dangers of sex, talked about the sexually transmitted diseases that you could get. It touched on anatomy, and it touched on how sex can lead to pregnancy and all kinds of other, at the time, negative side effects. There was no real discussion surrounding how sex can be pleasurable, how it can be an emotional experience, or it could just be a physical act done between two people who are physically attracted between one another. None of those things were translated to me. And so my perception initially of sex was just very limited. And by limited, I would say scary, like terrifying. If you ask people who knew me in high school, if you mention the word penis, I would run away screaming, because to me, that was the worst possible thing in the world. Do not bring that phallic, dangerous object near me, because it brought nothing but trouble. And so for the longest time, I actively avoided sexual intercourse of any variety. I did not want people touching me, because I was taught that it brought nothing but shame and nothing but negative side effects, particularly for women. I did not want to be pregnant. I did not want to have a sexually transmitted disease. And I also didn't want to be thrown away by someone that I'd engaged in a sexual act with. So as I got older and moved more into just experiencing sex with my partners and whoever, I started to learn that it is not so much something to be ashamed of, but as we mentioned, a very natural act that happens between a variety of individuals. And so it got me thinking, why do we feel the way we feel about sex? Why is this something that is wrought with shame and negative side effects? And the conclusion I came to is it's the terminology we use when describing sex. So I saw a Facebook post not too long ago, and if you'll bear with me, I'll read it briefly. But to me, it sums up how we view sex within our society. So The excerpt says, patriarchy teaches us that sex for women is a giveaway, while for men it's a takeaway. She saves herself, gives herself to the right one, and then her virginity is lost. In this equation, there's nothing in sex that's for her to take, whereas he takes and scores, and there's nothing in sex for him to give. When her mind is programmed to give, she struggles to say no. When his mind is programmed to take, he struggles to accept no. Trying to teach consent without first eradicating purity culture and normalizing female pleasure is like trying to teach a bird to fly after you've chopped off its wings. And that was by Farida D. And I think that's a pretty big summary of how sex is taught in America. What do you think, Cleo?
Oof, I'm snapping fingers over here. I'm just like, oh, that hits. I think that's a very, very vital statement to hear, because it's just so ingrained since we are like young to be the givers as just women in general. And even in books, like I grew up reading a lot of the young adult novels and watching a lot of like the romance movies, and it was always catered to women having to give themselves and give up everything for the man. Even in sexual situations, it's like, what can she do to please him, rather than how can they please each other in the mutual pleasure and mutual satisfaction. And when it comes to even at the topic of masturbation, it's still skewed that it's perfectly normal for men, but women shouldn't do it because we're not supposed to, quote unquote, like be trying to pleasure ourselves. We're not, it's like almost shameful that we try to explore, we try to experiment. It's like, oh, ew, why do you do that? You know what I mean? And it's just like, oh, your body's only meant to pleasure the man, but without a partner to have sex with, then you don't need to be doing anything, even if you do have sexual urges. And it's a really toxic way of teaching about sexuality that's so normal for anyone to get aroused. But since women are just kind of items essentially of sexual pleasure, I think it's very difficult for many of us growing up to be able to comfortably explore the more sensual side of our bodies. Because also body issues, body image that the society like crushes on us. But I feel that that's my brain is just still trying to comprehend, because I never thought about it, honestly. I never thought the idea of the terminology we use, like, oh, we lost our virginity, like was mentioned in the segment you read. We lost our virginity, we're giving ourselves, we're saving ourselves for that partner. But men aren't taught the same thing. And I know that I used to subscribe to the mindset of, oh, even if sex is bad, at least I'm emotionally connecting with my partner, so it's fine. I wasn't really taught, like in my household, my mother never talked to me about sex. Like she found out because I think she found like a condom wrapper like hidden somewhere. She's like, are you having sex? I'm like, I get maybe. Why? She's like, well, just don't be stupid, and walked away. So there wasn't really a conversation there. I just heard about, okay, using condoms so you don't get pregnant. I didn't really have much of a experience besides what I read in novels or what I saw on TV. I had sex ed in school, but it was kind of like, oh, STDs, here's like a diseased vagina. You know, it wasn't about, it's like I'm sorry. It's like, it was just a very unhealthy exposure because I just never knew like about the proper way to learn about STDs besides being scared, or hey, you have sex, you're going to hell. You masturbate, you're going to hell. Like, or women shouldn't be doing this, or women shouldn't be doing that, or even buying toys was like such an embarrassing thing. I couldn't buy anything until I was like in my late 20s, and it was so awkward and so embarrassing to want to even look into investing in personal pleasure, you know? And it takes a lot of so much deconstructing and reprogramming yourself to be more comfortable in trying to explore something that is so common Yet, like, because you see it everywhere, sex sells, sex is everything. But when you try to talk about it, it's blasphemous. You can't talk about it, yet the movies you watch can fully exploit it. It's a very weird paradigm, if that's the proper word to use right now.
Yeah, no, I would completely agree with that.
But you get what I mean.
I do. Like, it's such a strange phenomenon to me because sex is so, well, rather, sexual portrayals are very easily accessible. But for people who don't know how to do it, you don't get a roadmap. You get a snapshot of these fantastical scenarios that don't measure up to real life experiences or expectations. Like that whole joke going around the internet is that the men don't know where the G-spot is, or they don't know where the clitoris is. They couldn't find it. And to me, I don't like to shame people for that, simply because I understand that that's not taught. Like, we don't get a formal education on how to locate erogenous zones. Most people are taught that the ass, the vagina, the penis, the breasts, the nipples are, and maybe the neck occasionally, are erogenous zones for stimulation, and that's how you quote unquote turn someone on. When in reality, there are about 17 erogenous zones on the human body.
Did not know that.
That is a discussion for another time. But but it's such a, these are things that I'm trying to wrap my head around now. Is I've begun doing my own research as far as finding out not only just the emotional and the sensual exploration of sex as an art form, but just understanding the science behind it, the biology, the anatomy, the chemical transitions that happen, and especially, as you know, this is my profession, the mentality, the psychology behind sexual exploration and arousal between individuals. So these are topics that are very close to me, and I'm so looking forward to exploring them further because I think the people need to know.
Yo, they really do need to know, and I know even I need to know. There's still a lot that I don't know. There's still a lot that I want to explore and to just be educated about, because not even just the act of there's a hole, there's a penis, stick the penis in the hole. That's kind of like what a lot of people are just taught. But
or
just,
bam, 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 bam. Thank you, ma'am. We're done. Like, huh?
bam, bam, bam. Thank you, ma'am. Like, and there's also like a really big difference between how certain people, like this will be another episode, the difference between arousal versus turned on. There's a very distinct difference that I just learned recently. I didn't know there was a difference. Or even the fact that, especially when it comes to women in sexuality, like many of us, we tend to get in our heads a lot. So it's very difficult for some of us to actually get turned on. Or the fact that many people don't realize, at least I think the statistics were 70% of women cannot finish or become pleasured, like reach orgasm through penetration alone. They need additional stimulation in order to reach orgasm. And only about 30% can reach orgasm through penetration alone. And it's such a staggering difference, because the image we're portrayed is that just penetration alone is satisfying enough, when it's not for everyone. So that leaves a lot of us feeling like, what's wrong with me? I can't get off. In a way, I can't get off via just the most, I guess, basic form of sex that we're taught. So I'm really hoping that the information that we provide can also provide, especially the healing and the validation to those who struggle with being, with the women, those of us, I'm in that category, who require more attention and more care in order to become pleased. And in the society where there are many men who are not taught how to please their partner, and in their mind it's just, oh, I'm enough, pump, 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 and we're good, and you should be good. It's difficult to find partners who are willing to take that time, and only encountering partners who just kind of are more takers than givers. It can be really challenging on the ego of your own sexuality. Be like, well, is there something wrong with me? Because he can get off fine and I'm just left here unsatisfied. It can be a very disheartening experience. But I'm hoping that with the information we provide, we can help alleviate that, or at least validate to let you know you're not alone. And there's many other women and men too who have struggles reaching that level of pleasure. And
Oh, most definitely. I don't want anyone to believe that we're only talking about women when we discuss our sexual topics. We're trying to broaden this to talk to everyone, men included. So that's what we're here for. We're going to share this information and these facts so that you understand that these things are normal. I know that one of the more common issues that is talked about but not really is erectile dysfunction. And studies are showing that men are experiencing erectile dysfunction younger and younger, even in their 20s. And this is mainly as a result of mental blocks that are occurring. Unfortunately, trauma is a big part of that, and that's another episode that we can cover. But erectile dysfunction is nothing to be ashamed about. It happens. You're not going to be like the porn stars and be able to perform all the time, because even they have fluffers. Okay, there's a lot of help there, a lot of help. And that's basically what we're trying to convey, is that what you see in the media and what, you know, your friends tell you might not necessarily be true. And in order for you to understand what's good for you, you have to experience it. You have to be willing to take that journey and to be open-minded enough to learn about what works for you and what doesn't. And when you encounter new partners, it's the same thing. What works for them and what doesn't. And it can be an amazing journey if you're open to new information and the ups and downs that come with any kind of new experience.
And also learning, like, hopefully we can provide you with the tools as well to learn what to look for in a potential partner that's a sexual partner. Because even if you subscribe to the lifestyle of being non-monogamous or polyamorous, or not just having an open relationship, or even just a friends with benefits situation or a fuck buddy relationship, no judgment here. But we would love to also arm you with the tools to know what to look for in a sexual partner, so that way not only are they safe, but most importantly, you are safe and you are comfortable enough to be exploring whatever fantasies you may have in a way that assures that your own health is number one importance. So like talking about like potential STD things to look out for, what are red flags in their behavior? Do they respect your boundaries? Do you have the, like, what type of conversation to have before you engage with sex with someone? Because many times we tend to get lost in the moment of like, oh, we kind of vibing with this person and they seem pretty cool, and then we just go straight home and sleep with them, which to some, if that's your vibe, that's your vibe. I'm not here to judge, but that can wind up leading to dangerous consequences if you are not aware of how to protect yourself properly, or if you aren't aware of what signs to look out for that this person might not be trustworthy enough just because they put on an air in the bar. You know what I mean? So we want to make sure that you are practicing safely. On that note, we just wanted to give you a taste of what to expect in the coming weeks. Nothing too much. We're not going to give away everything and give away our secrets. So you're going to have to wait until our coming episodes to see all the juicy details.
It's called delayed gratification, or edging in certain circles.
Hey, I love, yes. Ooh, this one's trouble. See, Callie over here, she got the goods. She got the
perhaps.
So on that note, everyone, thank you for listening to our episode, our first episode of this series. And here's a question of the day for y'all. What are some questions you have about sex that you were just too afraid to ask? I know this is here on our listening platform on like Spotify, iHeartRadio, on the podcast forum, but we also are available on YouTube as well if you want to check out the visual of our podcast. So please feel free to leave a message in our comment section on our YouTube channel under the Melanin Podcast. And we also have a Facebook page that you comment, and a Facebook group too, coming soon. So we love to hear from you. We are looking forward to it. And we will see you next week. This is Cleo.
And this is Callie.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey everyone, thank you for listening to this week's episode. Now, just to reiterate our question of the week, what are some things that you have questions about when it comes to sex? Some things that you might be embarrassed about, too shy to ask? Let us know down in the comments below, and perhaps we will address it in a future episode. So remember, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell down below, and leave us a comment, and we will see you next time. Goodbye!